In January 2016, rapper and voice of our generation, B.O.B., tweeted, "No matter how high in elevation you go, the horizon is always eye level. Sorry, cadets, I didn't want to believe it either." And in 140 characters, B.O.B. clearly earned his philosophy degree and turned NASA, Hellenistic astronomy, and Ferdinand Magellan's circumnavigation of the Earth on their heads. Suggesting the Earth was flat, B.O.B.'s revolutionary revival of Ptolemaic thinking spawned a slew of #FlatEarth tweets, each claiming indisputable proof of the Earth's tabletop nature. For example, why do all the buildings in NYC stand straight up? #FlatEarth. As well as, if Earth is a spinning globe and the sun is supposedly light years away, how come sun rays beam straight down? #FlatEarth. Flat Earthers may seem harmless, but the plausibility of such widespread misunderstanding is indicative of a larger issue in our society. Americans are shying away from science. Just this year, the U.S. dropped out of the top 10 in the Bloomberg Innovation Index, which ranks international countries on criterion such as research and development, patents, and post-secondary education. Robert Atkinson, president of an innovation foundation in Washington, D.C., argues that the drop reflects a grim reality that the U.S. is currently suffering from a lack of initiatives to encourage scientific development, stalling both social and economic progress. So today, we will hypothesize some causes into our decline in science literacy, observe some social effects before finally rigorously testing some solutions to the fear of science, an issue that CNN of April 13, 2010 believes will kill us. Oh, CNN, you're so overdramatic. Besides, that was 2010 and we're not dead yet. We're just stupid. As John Miller, professor of integrated studies at Michigan State University, puts it, 70% of Americans cannot understand the science section of the New York Times. And our aversion to science starts young, due to the way we teach science and the stigma surrounding the subject. First off, our education system discourages scientific exploration. Education professional Alan Colburn explains that elementary school teachers are often apprehensive and unenthusiastic about science themselves. But even when teachers like science, we are testing the subject in a rigid rather than creative manner. Biologist Bruce Alberts explains that high-stakes, state-developed exams drive teachers to teach to the test. These simple, low-cost, multiple-choice tests mean no real scientific exploration in the classroom. No planting seeds and watching them grow, no baking soda and vinegar volcanoes, no dissections. It is much easier to test for science words than it is to test for scientific understanding or ingenuity. We've sucked the excitement out of science. Thus, it's no surprise that the Washington Post of December 16, 2016 reports that U.S. students rank 25th out of 35 top industrialized nations in quality of science education. Similarly, tired scientific teaching practices have led students to stigmatize science itself, with labels like boring, tedious, impossibly hard, which leads students to avoid a science education altogether. According to the College Board, the AP Chemistry exam constituted only 3.3% of AP exams taken in 2016, while AP English exams made up 20.3%. English may be perceived as easier, but students are also being taught to view science credits as less valuable. The Simon Foundation reports that, while 89% of parents believe fundamentals in reading, math, and writing were very important to get a good job, only 59% of parents reported a similar importance with science. With little familial faith and rigorous, dry material, the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology reveals that roughly 40% of students planning to major in engineering and science end up switching to other subjects, opting for easier alternatives. That's some sad science. You know what else is sad? I honestly had to think about it when I saw the hashtag Flat Earth post trending. Like, I legitimately had to stop myself and go, but how do you know, Simona? How do you know the Earth is round? Our lack of a foundation in scientific knowledge manifests itself in two critical ways: inaccurate reporting of science, and in turn, general disregard for scientific findings. Journalist Dan Rather embodied the media's haphazard treatment of science with a quotation, "If I were to generously grade mainstream media on science coverage, I would give us a C. Afraid of alienating readers, articles relating to scientific topics are dumbed down. Statistics, scientific vocabulary, and other evidence are traded in for quick, stimulating conclusions that are often inaccurate. News sources will even shy away from important science stories in the fear that they are too complicated. Science can be silenced, but its complexity often leads to twisted or misreported information. And the media, especially Twitter, can spread false scientific information quickly while also allowing for a large amount of content production in a short period of time. Reporters vying for an audience will often release science stories before results of scientific studies are even published, leading to a slew of conflicting information. This week, coffee causes cancer. The next, it does not. When faced with sloppy science reporting, many of us become overwhelmed or frustrated with the amount of conflicting information and instead turn to scientific conclusions that support our previously held worldview, a phenomenon known as confirmation bias. In other words, we throw the science behind the conclusions out the window and simply believe whatever aligns best with our perspective, defeating the purpose of science in the first place. Inaccurate reporting and our inability to understand scientific data ourselves has real-world consequences. In August 2017, Hurricane Harvey wreaked havoc in Houston. Science author Brian Merchant explains that homes and lives may have been saved if officials and policymakers had incorporated the recommendations of sound science in their plans. Despite data on the effect of climate change on storms, no preventative measures were taken to ensure the safety of Houstonians. Americans clearly disregard science at their own risk quicker than BOB throws out the laws of physics. Rethinking science education and fixing science communications are two ways we can begin to up our science IQ. It's not surprising that a renewal of scientific literacy must begin with education and teaching. At the secondary level, this means teaching applications of science rather than rote memorization of facts. Natasha Wadlington, a scholar at the University of Chicago, explains that classrooms should be safe havens where students can explore and discover science on their own terms. K-12 teachers must undergo specialty science training, and teaching science should be popularized as a respectable profession amongst the broader scientific community. Next, we need to fix communications between scientists and the public. Topics need not be dumbed down, but rather simplified in a way that is relatable to non-majors. By making content relatable, engagement rises, and even non-majors can feel comfortable with topics being discussed. The same applies for articles written about scientific topics. Rather than completely abolishing complex topics, reporters just need to put complicated vocabulary in simpler terms. As legendary science journalist Tim Radford puts it, don't overestimate your readers' knowledge and don't underestimate their intelligence. And readers, be an informed consumer. Although checking sources may remind you of that one freshman writing class that you just wish to forget, oftentimes a simple check for validity can reveal the flaws in bad science reporting. Speaking of bad science, I realized I was right. The Earth is round, and we can tell this every day simply by looking at the existence of time zones, sundials, picture of Earth from space. After examining the problems, causes, and solutions to our experimental evasions, we should realize that a renewal of scientific literacy must begin with a renewal of scientific education. And while it may be too late to convince B.O.B. of some elementary science, hopefully we can still save future generations from similar #FlatEarth dilemmas.